she wouldn't. She had stayed with Ingram all these years. She would not fail on these final days. It was a duty she would not fall short in. The footman opened the carriage door. She accepted his hand to assist her up and help make her comfortable. She wondered how many of the servants were quite aware of Mr. Justice York's temper tantrums, the vile names he called her at times. Perhaps they had even seen blood on the sheets, and sometimes on the towels as well. There were things that, if she thought of them, overwhelmed her. How could she calmly sit at the dining-room table while the butler served her soup if she were to imagine for an instant that he knew how York had used her sexually when the bedroom doors were locked? It had begun within weeks of their wedding. At first only a matter of insistence, a certain roughness that had caused her pain. Gradually it had become grosser, more humiliating, and the verbal abuse coarser, the violence more unpredictable. It had gone on, to one degree or another, for years. There had been times when for months there had been nothing, and she had dared hope her ordeal was over, even if it meant that he never touched her at all. That was foolish. But in those times of respite he would be witty, so intelligent, and in public at least treat her with respect, as if the cruelty were an aberration. Then the darkness was all the greater when it returned. Oliver Rathbone had been a guest the day it had finally ended. Ingram had completely lost all control and lashed out at Oliver with his cane. If he had struck him with it, it would have been a fearful blow. He could have even killed him, had it caught him on the temple. Thank heaven, at that instant of rage, Ingram had taken a fit of some kind, and fallen insensible to the floor, quite literally foaming at the mouth. He had still been deeply unconscious when the ambulance had come for him and taken him to the hospital for diseases of the nervous system. It would have been merciful if he had sunk deeper into the coma and died. Unfortunately, that had not happened. He had hovered on the edge of consciousness, with brief moments of lucidity in the long months since then. It was over a year ago now. Beata had been a widow in all senses but that of being free to marry again. She still bore his name, lived in his house, and dutifully forced herself to visit him when conscience drove her to it, or the doctor sent for her. She stared out the window at the other carriages, ladies with fur collars and capes inside. It was not a long journey, but the route passed close to Regent's Park, and the bare trees were like tangled black lace. It would have been a good day for walking. She looked away in time to see a carriage passing on the other side of the street. She met the woman passenger's eyes for an instant and saw the warmth and the familiar gesture with her hand. She just had time to smile back and nod agreement. Yes, she accepted the invitation. It would be something simple and fun. The journey all passed too quickly. She was already at the hospital. The footman climbed down with easy grace and held the door open for her. The cold air made her wish momentarily that she had brought furs too. Then she remembered Ingram giving them to her one Christmas, and she thought she would rather be cold as she walked across the pavement and up the wide steps into the hospital entrance. She was expected, and the doctor in charge was standing waiting for her. She had developed a reputation for promptness, and he stepped forward, smiling gravely, inclining his head in a slight bow. She was accustomed to it. She was the wife of one of the High Court's most respected judges. It was the convention that none of them acknowledged his altered state as irreversible. "Good afternoon, Lady York," he said soberly. "I'm afraid the weather has turned much colder." "Indeed," she replied, as if it mattered in the slightest to either of them. It was just easier to stick to the ritual than to have to think of something different to say. "How is my husband?" She always said that also.